When I was a student, I heard stories of how people bought their first cars immediately after internship. Internship is actually the first job you get to do as a pharmacist immediately after graduation, and it's usually done for like 1 year. It's more like a training job for pharmacists. And I also heard stories of how people were able to buy lands or maybe do some serious investments before their internship periods were over. I was just so happy and expectant, and then thinking that I would make a lot of money and that before my internship period was even over, I would become very rich. That was my expectation. Like, I had this confidence that I'm going to be a millionaire before my internship period was over. But I was very wrong. The very first thing I discovered after graduation was how difficult it was for me to even get a place for my internship training. That was the first shocker I got after graduation. I didn't expect it to be as difficult as it was. I was expecting it to be something that I would get very easily after graduation. But I found out that I ended up applying in many places, and I even had to like travel to different places for the interview before I eventually got a place for the internship training. When I was applying and traveling for those interviews, I actually got to discover that because most of the places I was applying for were teaching hospitals. What I discovered was that I would apply, we would be invited for interview. Many of us would travel for the interview, go for the interview, and then get back home and wait for their feedback. We won't even hear any feedback and won't even know when the successful candidates were taken. Like, does it make sense? Then as time went on, I now got to discover that getting a placement for internship in federal hospitals was purely based on who you know and not based on your performance. Nobody cared about performance. That was one thing I got to discover. And that even got me thinking, like, why would you invite people for interview when you knew that you were not going to take them based on performance anyway? Why would people risk their life and travel all the way, sometimes to another state from a different state, to come for an interview that they won't even be selected based on their performance? Does it even make sense at all? And maybe sometimes some people that didn't even go for the interview may end up being employed for the internship placement, for the internship training, or for the job. At least if the interviews were done online, it would have still been better, because at least you know that you are not risking your life traveling all that distance to go for a physical interview. You sit in the comfort of your home, do the interview, whether they call you or not. You know that at least you didn't stress yourself. But no, those interviews, they won't do it online. No, even up to today that I'm filming this video, they still don't do those interviews online. They still expect people to be there in person. Like, you'd have to travel to that place in person and then go there for the interview that does not even count at all. Like, it doesn't just make sense. And come to even think of it, I feel that there was no need for those interviews, because why would we interview an intern? We are fresh pharmacy graduates, and if we hadn't passed all our exams, we wouldn't have been inducted in the first place. Talk more of qualifying for internship. And besides, the internship was actually meant to train us. So what is the need for the interview? Why interview an intern? There was no need for that interview. So why conduct an interview? Why would they even make us apply in the first place? Because it's just like making it look like a job interview and a job hunt, of which it's not meant to be so. It's actually a training, and we are not supposed to, it's not supposed to be done in the same way a job interview is done. So I don't even see the need for the interview to even start with. Well, I eventually got the place for my internship in a teaching hospital, a federal hospital, and how I got that placement was purely through connection. Someone helped me get it. After getting the internship, I started earning money as an intern because we are paid as interns. Now, the money I thought was going to be a big money, a large money, was not big at all. In fact, to my greatest shock, the money that looked big when I was in school was not big at all. As an intern, I was being paid 120,000 naira, which is in dollar equivalent. Let me just assume it's $120. That was what I was being paid as an intern pharmacist. When I started receiving this salary as an intern, I discovered that the money was not big at all. And why wasn't the money big? Because I found out that, one, I had to pay house rent, and the house rent was actually going to be from that internship money. I'm not from a rich home, so my parents didn't rent an apartment for me. I had to hustle it myself, okay? So the money I paid for my house rent was from that internship money, and I paid the house rent in installments. The house rent was actually 140,000 naira, or you can say $140 or $120. So it's like one full month salary was actually out of the internship money already, but I paid it in installments. So that was one. In school, mind you, I wasn't paying house rent in school. My parents were paying my school fees in school. And then in school, I stayed in a hostel. I didn't stay off campus, so I didn't have to pay house rent. The hostel accommodation fee was like 7,000 naira for the whole session, not even for for a semester, for the whole session, and it was very cheap. And I was not even the one that paid for it. My parents took care of that. But now I had to pay house rent because I had to stay somewhere. I'm no more a student. And again, I also had to start fending for myself. I was no more a student, so my parents were no more sending me pocket money. So I had to start buying food stuff from that money that I was paid as an intern as well. And then another thing is that I also had to help out at home financially. Now internship period was over and I had to go for my NYSC. For those that are not Nigerians, NYSC is a compulsory 1-year service to the country Nigeria, where every Nigerian graduate would have to serve Nigeria for 1 year before he or she would start looking for jobs. When I started my NYSC, the little money I saved during internship, I had to use it to pay for my house rent during my NYSC, because my NYSC now is in a different state from my internship state. So I didn't even have to renew the former house rent that I rented. I had to get another apartment and I had to also pay house rent. So the little money I thought I saved up from internship, I used it for house rent. Then another shocker I got during NYSC was that the salary I was paid was like half of what I was paid during internship. I was paid 60,000 naira as a copper pharmacist, whereas during internship I was paid 120,000 naira. So I kind of became poorer during my NYSC compared to during my internship period, and I had to really manage that money well to avoid me going into trouble as a copper. Imagine earning 60,000 naira every month and everything is dependent on it. Your transport to work, your feeding, your everything. When I say everything, it was dependent on that 60,000 naira. And I had to really manage. In fact, at some point during my NYSC, I had to get an additional job, a part-time job, just to support what I was earning, which was the 60,000 naira. And in that part-time job, I was being paid 15,000 naira a month. So if I add it to the 60,000 naira I was earning, that is like 75,000 naira a month, which is like $75 in dollar equivalent or even less. So this was another shocking discovery for me during the NYSC period, because I didn't expect that I would earn less money than I earned during my internship, during my NYSC days. But that was the hard truth. I had to earn less and I had to manage. Well, I eventually finished my NYSC and then I started job hunting. I started looking for jobs, and it was at this point that I discovered that I didn't have any plans. I hadn't planned what I wanted to do after school, and I didn't even know that I had to make the plans even before I finished my NYSC. Some of my colleagues actually had plans during their NYSC days, but most of them actually kept it secret, and we didn't even know about their plans until they had already started excelling. So they kept it secret, and those of us that were ignorant continued in our ignorance, and I was part of those that were ignorant. So I didn't make any plans and I didn't have any plans, so I was just applying for the jobs randomly. Some of my colleagues already knew that they were going to leave the country immediately after NYSC, so they had already started writing exams and planning and preparing for it. And immediately their NYSC, some of them left the country, or shortly after their NYSC, some left the country. And some had already started researching on some multinational companies to work and started like planning towards it, taking some volunteer works, doing some free jobs just to get some experiences. So some of them immediately after the NYSC, they got some good jobs in some multinational companies and started earning big money, so they already had things planned out, and because they had plans, they were able to know where they wanted and they got what they wanted. In fact, some people had even like started researching on how to set up their own pharmacies immediately after NYSC. They had started researching on how to get loans, how community pharmacy practices work, and how to set up their own. So some people immediately after their NYSC, the next thing we were hearing was that this person had already opened his own pharmacy and it was looking so good, and they are thriving today. But for me, people of God, I had no plans. So I started applying for jobs. I started job hunting blindly. Blindly, because I didn't even know what I wanted to do. And this was also another sad discovery for me, another eye-opening discovery for me. So I actually started looking for jobs, and then the places I was applying was in the eastern part of the country of Nigeria, because as at that time I was in Enugu where my parents were, And because I was in Enugu, I was applying to jobs in Enugu and around Enugu, and I eventually got one major job in Abia State, Umuahia, in a community pharmacy, and I worked there for more than 2 years. I don't want to say that I regret my time in Umuahia. I'm actually the type of person that don't like regretting things, because I believe that everything that happens to us actually works together for good to those that are in Christ Jesus. And since I'm in Christ Jesus, I believe that everything is actually working together for good for me. Okay, so I don't regret my time in Umuahia. The only thing I learned from staying in Umuahia is that had it been I knew, I couldn't have accepted any job in the eastern part of Nigeria. I could have left, in fact, immediately after my NYSC, I could have left to Lagos immediately and started looking for a job in Lagos. But because I didn't know, I had to work for almost 3 years in Umuahia before my eyes opened, and I was like, what am I even doing here? And I had to relocate to Lagos. And it was when I got to Lagos, I discovered that geography matters a lot, environment matters a lot when it comes to our career progression and all that. When I got to Lagos, I started feeling bad for not coming to Lagos earlier, immediately after graduation. But all the same, I was still happy and was still grateful to God that, I was even able to courageously resign from that job in Umuahia, because that job was already looking like a comfort zone for me. I was comfortable in Umuahia, but I was still grateful that at least I was able to resign from that job, and I was able to boldly and courageously leave Umuahia for Lagos. In another video, I'm going to tell us the story of my relocation, of how I relocated from Umuahia to Lagos, of how I resigned from my job. I'm going to tell us that in a different video. If I tell that story in this video is going to be too long, and I don't want this video to be too long for you guys. So if you're enjoying this my story of life after school so far, please give this video a like and also subscribe. And I said so far because I'm still living the life after school, and I'm still discovering a lot of things, and I will still share those things with us as time goes on. So that's why I said life after school so far, because there is still more to unfold, more to be discovered. But for now, the major takeaways from this video is that life is not as easy as I had anticipated after school. Life is not that easy after school, especially if you are not from a very wealthy family, a very rich home that can, help establish you immediately after school. And again, if you don't start making plans early enough, like from school, of what you really want to be doing after school, or after your NYSC, or if you don't have sponsors, people that will sponsor you after school. If not, you are going to struggle a lot, and it's not really going to be easy. That's when you start discovering that this life is actually hard, that being an adult that takes responsibility is not that easy at all. With that being said, I would like to end this video here. And if you are enjoying the videos in this channel so far, please do well to like and subscribe, and put on your notification bell so that you will be notified whenever I post any new video. And then you can check the description box, because I'm going to put the link to other of my videos there in case you've not watched any of them. Feel free to watch any of the ones you've not watched yet. I'm sure you'd enjoy them too. Thank you so much for watching, for sticking with me to the end, for following my stories. Tell me what you think in the comment section. How was life after school for you, or how is life after school for you? Are you finding it easy? Is it hard? Is your story a kind of related to mine? Is it similar to mine? Please feel free to tell me in the comment section. Let's gist there, let's discuss there. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.